All right, for today's video review, we're going to be taking a look at Transformers Studio Series Voyager class Bumblebee movie Shockwave. Very excited to finally get this guy. I've wanted a Voyager version of this design ever since the movie came out, and yeah, this guy largely does not disappoint. I think he's a pretty fun figure, not without issue, but still, I think he's pretty good. Looks pretty good in his tank mode here. I mean, obviously, Shockwave's tank mode is kind of just his like whatever alt mode. Like it looks fine, but mainly you get a Shockwave for the robot mode. But yeah, it's a kind of a neat design here. I feel like they did it a little bit better than how they handled the made up alt mode for the Bumblebee movie Soundwave, for example. But yeah, it rolls nicely here. He's got little rolling wheels on the bottom of his treads here, and yeah, pretty decent alt mode. You can rotate the turret around. I mean, it's pretty much just pegged into place here using this this long peg, so you can kind of rotate it around. You can, I guess, notionally bend it up to this joint kind of locks into place, so it's got a couple sort of like stopping points, but you can bend it up like that. You can also sort of like wiggle around the like end of the barrel here. The hose comes as a separate piece. You can attach it on the other side. It's got like the hole on it's basically symmetrical, the mold here, so like you could plug it on the other way and have it plug onto his other arm if you wanted to. If you want to do that. I know some versions of the movie Shockwave had the cannon on his other arm, but I prefer to keep it on the G1 arm, and that's how they did it for the Bumblebee movie as well. But yeah, decent looking alt mode here. It's not the most important part of the figure, but it works well enough. In terms of comparisons in this mode, just for a standard one, here he is with Kingdom Sideswipe. That's what he looks like with an average size deluxe there. Here he is for some other Bumblebee movie comparisons with Brawn and Soundwave here, some other characters from the Cybertron scene there. Again, none of these alt modes were actually seen in the movie, but yeah, that's what they all look like together. For some other Shockwave comparisons, here he is with Siege Shockwave in his alt mode, or, if you prefer, here he is with Siege Shockwave in his alt mode. That's what they look like together. Here he is with Transformers Prime Shockwave, just because this is a huge inspiration for this design. And yeah, no, I think that it kind of takes this general transformation scheme and just cleans it up a little bit, makes it look a little bit more, compatible with G1 and less of like the weird rounded shapes of Prime. I'd definitely say that this is a more successful alt mode than the weird H-Tank for Transformers Prime Shockwave, but you can definitely see the inspiration there, the legs kind of ending up here, although these are his arms and these are just bits of his backpack. It still has the kind of H-Tank treads there in the back and then the big cannon on the top there. Kind of you can see the inspiration there. And then last but not least, here he is with the core version of Studio Series Shockwave, who we got a while ago, and everyone was like, you're just gonna give us a core, we're not gonna get the Voyager. But eventually they did give us the Voyager, and yeah, they're pretty similar, honestly. Like the transformation scheme is like, aside from a couple extra like cleaning up steps, it's pretty much the same transformation, which honestly I'm not mad about. It adds enough that it's still sort of like engaging, but it is a relatively simple transformation, and there's nothing really wrong with that. But yeah, that's what they look like in their tank mode together. I much prefer the shade of purple that they used on the Voyager version. I like this shade of purple just for Shockwave. I definitely prefer this sort of slightly bluier purple than the more red toned purple there. And another thing that they changed is the way that the cannon plugs on, so you don't have the problem with the head kind of poking out the back. I mean, you can still see the head there, but at least it's folded up, not where the alt mode plugs in. Although they almost conceivably could have done that though, because there's like kind of a gap on the back of his head here, so it sort of seems like maybe that was the design intention first, to have it plug into the head, but then they just added this extra bit instead. But either way, they look kind of decent together. But yeah, if you're at all familiar with this guy and the way he transforms, then you'll be pretty familiar with how the Voyager version transforms. Like I said, it's pretty much the same. You want to take the gun off here, and like technically he's not going to parts form because it's still attached by the hose. And just so this isn't like, rattling around, what I usually do is I'll just do the gun transformation now and just attach it to one of his arms, because it totally fits there. Like you don't need to, wait to do that step. But the gun itself does have a little bit of transformation. You do want to double hinge it down and kind of collapse it like this, so it's a little bit more wieldy in robot mode, but then gets to be, kind of longer in tank mode, which I appreciate. And then you take this peg where it just like attached to this section here, and you just want to fold that up like that so it clicks into place. And then you'll take this tab here on the inside of the gun, and again, you could slot it on whichever arm you like. I prefer it on this arm, so I'm gonna slot it into that tab there. But like I said, it's got it on both sides there. It's totally symmetrical. It can be kind of annoying to line up sometimes, but once you get it, it tabs in place just fine, and it's not rattling around and just kind of out of the way. And then you want to take this whole body section here, again, pretty similar to the core, just rotate it up like that. Probably going to need to adjust the camera here for a sec, because he's definitely going to start to get a bit taller here, being a Voyager class. All right, then next thing you basically want to do is take the head here and just fold it up like that. And then take, again, very similar to the core class, take this little piece of the sort of chest armor and kind of fold it up like that. It just kind of locks into the back of the waist piece here. And again, very similar to the core class, the legs will just tab into the side of the chest piece here, and then you can unlock this and kind of collapse it up into place just like that. Then we can bring the legs down on these hinges here, fold down the feet, and then kind of in my opinion, sort of unnecessary transformation step. You take these little tread pieces and kind of extend them out, rotate them around, and compress them back in. I guess it looks slightly better with them down like that, but I don't know that this is totally necessary. Not really a problem. It's just kind of, it's like, oh, they thought that was necessary. They didn't think a bicep swivel was necessary. Whatever. Spoilers. You'll see. But also, this one in particular is like really, really loose, whereas this one is relatively tight. It doesn't really matter because they stay compressed into place just fine. I just find it kind of funny how that one is just like a helicopter blade, but neither here nor there. And then the arms just tab into the side here, so you just want to untab them and then rotate them down. And then the forearms here we'll just untab from the this bit on the elbow joint, and then you can rotate those forward. And then on this hand, I mean, both hands have it. You can give him two hands, or like I said, flip it around so that the gun's on the other side. But you just want to open up the treads here and rotate out the hand, and then click that back into place. And then for this arm, because it's got the gun arm there, we don't need to flip out the hand, but we'll just rotate it down like that. And there we have Bumblebee movie Shockwave in his robot mode. And yeah, he looks really, really pretty. I like this a lot. I think that he looks really nice. He's got little bits of like silver weathering on him in like select places. It looks really, really nice on the chest piece here. He also has a little bit on the bottom here. He's got it on the thighs. It honestly could have used a bit more on the thighs, since in the movie his thighs really are more of like a silver. So like covering that more in the weathering would have given that effect a little bit more, but not the end of the world. He also has a little bit on his shoulders here. Would have been nice if they did it on both sides, but I think it looks fine there. Again, it's kind of a subtle thing regardless. It's just enough to kind of like give him a little extra pop without, making it too obvious that it's in some places but not others. Like it's not as, obvious and ugly as like the Siege weathering or anything like that. But yeah, no, I think it really adds a lot to this figure here. Now, in terms of articulation, he's got a couple things to talk about, but his head is, I think it's on a ball joint. It mostly just gets a swivel range, but you can get like a tiny amount of wiggle, which, just kind of feels like a ball joint, even if it's mostly just a swivel range. The shoulders can do a full 360. Obviously, if you do this one, it's going to start to wrap up the hose here, which is just, a soft rubber plastic. It feels like it'll be fairly durable, but I guess we'll see how that, survives the test of time, but can do a full 360. They can hinge out to the side. That's on kind of like a soft ratchet joint. And unfortunately, I don't know why this is the case, but the ratchet does not have quite enough teeth to it. So like, if you want his hands kind of inside to the body, they're kind of like clicked right up against the legs. And then the next click out is like this, which is not terrible, but just for like a candid pose, his arms are just like slightly further out to the side than I'd like them to be. You can kind of cheat the ratchets and get it so the arms are sitting kind of in between it. It's not, it's more stable than that kind of cheating the ratchets can usually be. So I'm not bothered by it too much. But again, it's just sort of the case of like, why wouldn't you just sculpt it so the ratchet has a few more teeth? That doesn't like really change the amount of plastic you're using. I don't know, whatever. But yeah, he unfortunately does not have a bicep swivel at all, and it's hard to really see why. Like I said, his transformation is so simple, which I don't have a problem with, but you'd think that since the transformation is so simple, they'd be able to like allocate a few more moving parts to like making the articulation a little bit better, because he's overall just kind of adequate with his articulation, but there's just a few like conspicuously missing things. Well, really just the bicep swivels are the really conspicuously missing thing. Like, yeah, he's got the joint here and he's got this slot here for where it tabs into the body, but like it still feels like there definitely could have been a bicep swivel kind of sandwiched in there at some point. And yeah, I don't know. It's a joint that they don't usually leave off of figures nowadays, but and it definitely doesn't feel like this guy has like enough complexity in terms of his transformation to justify why like an obvious joint like that would be missing. I honestly, while posing him, I don't miss it all that much, but it is just a little bit baffling that it isn't there. He's got about 90 degrees of bend at the elbow. He does have a swivel below the elbow for how it works for transformation. The wrists are on ball joints, which basically just gets them a swivel's range in this mode. He does have a waist joint. He's got hips can go forward and back and out to the side. He's got two thigh swivels actually. He's got one up here and one right here, neither of which are used for transformation. So I'm not entirely sure why this one there's a joint there at all, but whatever. It doesn't really bother anything. It's just sort of like cool. He's got two thigh swivels and no bicep swivels. He's got about 90 degrees of bend at the knee, maybe like a degree less, and then his knees do kind of click into place. And again, this is another point where I'm like, 90 degrees of bend at the knee is fine, right? Like that's adequate, but like he's just got this little sculpted section on the back of his thigh here, which just like basically serves as a stopper. And like, why? Like, if this little beast wasn't here, or this, this bottom section of the leg was just sculpted slightly differently, then he could get more than 90 degrees at the bend at the knee there. Like I said, such a simple figure in terms of its transformation. You think that they would allow it to have like a little bit more articulation, but yeah, I don't know. Again, it's kind of a nitpick because like, generally 90 degrees of bend is fine. It just feels like it's like, oh, it could have been more. So why wasn't it more? That kind of irritation, but whatever. And then the feet, they can tilt a little bit forward, a lot back for transformation, and then they do have a little bit of side-to-side tilt, which isn't a ton, but it's enough to keep the feet pretty versatile here. So yeah, like I said, overall decent articulation. There's nothing super wrong with it aside from the lack of the bicep swivels, but it just feels like, again, with such a simple transformation, they really could have paid, a closer mind to actually making, those joints go a little bit further. And there's areas where it doesn't really seem like there's any obstacle to making them go further. So, I found myself a little bit disappointed by that. But overall, he's a very, very nice looking figure. He does have some nice light piping for the eye here. I don't know how well it actually functions sort of like as light piping. Like, I don't get a lot of light coming through it, but just the fact that it's clear plastic, just the outside of it does catch light in some kind of interesting ways. So I still like the way that looks. I like that he's got the purple chest here. I cannot, for the life of me, remember if he actually had, the like translucent chest in the movie. Like, I'm pretty sure it was just like solid, but still I always prefer this better, so I'm never bothered when the toys do that, even if it's a little bit less accurate. But yeah, in terms of comparisons in this mode, just for the standard one, here he is with Kingdom Sideswipe there, so you can see what he looks like with an average size deluxe there. Here he is with our other Bumblebee movie guys with Shockwave or with Soundwave and Brawn here, so that you can see what they look like together. You can see he's a fairly tall Voyager. He's a good head above Soundwave there, a good regular size head, not his weird flat head, but you know what I mean. But yep, they look pretty good together. Here he is with Siege and Transformers Prime Shockwave, just so you can see what they all look like together. Pretty cool little setup there. And then again, last but not least, here he is with the core version of Bumblebee movie Shockwave. And you can definitely see a lot of the similarities here. I think that they definitely did the gun arm better on this one because, you know, it's actually oriented the correct way rather than just plugging into his hand. But, you know, that was fine for the core class. Again, the color I like a lot better. He is pretty much just a better updated version of the core version. Just a few more bells and whistles, but also slightly more limited in some areas. Like, hey, this guy has a bicep swivel. Just saying. His knees are worse, but, you know, it's still Voyager to core. Like, his knees should be better, but still, the fact that he doesn't have a bicep swivel is still very baffling to me. But yeah, no, he's a pretty nice looking figure overall. With Shockwaves, I mean, they're mostly just go on my shelf standing in a slightly ominous pose, just looking really pretty. So I'm not too bothered by it at the end of the day, but it's just kind of like a few baffling things that were just like, oh, that could have been better and didn't have much of a reason not to be, but whatever. Either way, he's still a very nice looking figure, and I am happy that I own him. But yeah, that's pretty much all there is to him. If you enjoy my videos, make sure to leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel. I do reviews every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. And without further ado, here we have Transformers Studio Series Bumblebee movie Shockwave.